Death at the Motel, by Tara Hester. Copyright 2024. Tara Hester. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written permission of the publisher, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical reviews and certain other non-commercial uses permitted by copyright law. Chapter 1. Parker took the leash from the coat closet and looked around for Benji. She was glad that at least he was always around. With Mark at college and Peter away for work, the house was increasingly becoming lonesome. Her marriage was in real trouble and Parker thought it won't be long before one of them pulled the plug on it. But she was determined to make it work and hung on. Benji came running down the stairs as soon as he heard the coat closet. Her golden retriever was in the shedding season and was losing hair everywhere. It was time for his weekly visit to the spa. Parker brushed his hair twice a week, and it was still difficult to keep the house hair free. The weekly shampoo and other treatments helped keep him and the house clean. Parker completed her morning ritual and gulped her grapefruit juice. Her run today morning was a bit longer than the usual, and she was feeling a bit exhausted. The juice should give her the boost she needed to get to work, she thought. The pair walked to the yellow Mustang parked in the driveway, and Parker squeezed her tall, toned frame into the driver's seat after letting Benji in, who settled next to her in the passenger seat. She should get her PI license any time now, Parker thought. It was weeks since she appeared for the exam, and being an ex-prosecutor, she had no doubt she would clear the PI license exam without a problem. With a bit of help from her handsome police chief friend, Roy, she had already seen a steady stream of clients. Her involvement in some big cases early on also helped get her some coverage. Parker brought her car to a stop in the strip mall lot, and took Benji over to the Paws Pet Salon, and handed him over to the owner of salon. This was routine for Benji now, and he knew the owner of the salon quite well. Parker remembered how she had to be there to calm Benji down the first time they visited the salon. Turning around on her heels, Parker walked to the other end of the strip mall to her office, that was almost furnished now. Though it was a one-man show, she had put in a small room for herself. Who knew? Someday she might need an assistant or someone to stay in the office to take calls and do the paperwork. The bright California sun always had a cheery effect on Parker. The blue sky was peppered with fluffy white clouds that made different shapes and made you want to extend your arms to grab at them. Parker settled in her seat and fired up her computer. She didn't have a lot to do since the high school case where 2 kids were brutally murdered. What has this world come to? She thought. People have started killing each other for trivial things. But then, the reasons more or less remained the same across the world. Jealousy, revenge, money, they were the same no matter where you went. Her phone rang and shook her out of her reverie. She fished out the phone from her jeans and looked at the name on the screen. It was Lorna. It was time to meet her, Parker thought. Lorna was her school friend, but they had a falling out after Lorna got arrested for breaking into government databases at the time. A prodigy of sorts, Lorna was later trained and hired by the government agencies to work for them, and had become an ethical hacker. She now worked freelance for the government and for some local companies. Parker and Lorna had bumped into each other a few months ago, and she had been instrumental in solving a couple of cases since then. Parker picked up the phone thinking of a suitable time to meet Lorna. "Hi, Lorna. I was just thinking about calling you. We need to meet, it's been weeks," Parker said. "I know, we do, but that is not why I called you. I need your help." Lorna seemed anxious. It was not like her to get to business from the first word. "Are you in trouble?" Parker could never really forget that Lorna was arrested and thought of the worst. Now she also had to worry if any of her activities from the past cases could come back to haunt her. "No, I am not, but my uncle is. He runs that motel on the highway. There's been a murder there and he is being charged for that murder and theft." Lorna jumbled her words as she spoke. "Slow down, Lorna. We will take care of whatever it is. Do you want me to be a lawyer or an investigator?" "Both, I guess. He needs a lawyer and also someone who will look into this mess. You have to help him. When can you meet? I am at the office right now. Do you want to come here? They have taken him to the police station. Can you meet me there? See what you can do to help him? Sure, I will grab a few things and be there in like 15 minutes, Parker said, picking up the keys on her table and thinking about Benji. She half sprinted to the Paws salon to check on him. Is he done, Benji? Parker asked the owner. No, I'm afraid it will take another 20 minutes at least. I have to go. Can you keep him here until I am back? Shouldn't be more than a couple of hours. Of course, Parker, not a problem. Parker thanked her and ran to her Mustang parked in the front of the salon. The engine revved and she was off toward the police building. Chapter 2. Parker pulled into the police station lot and raced up the side entrance stairs to Roy's office. Parker had worked with Roy when she was a state prosecutor. They were on the same team. Although they did not always see eye to eye, Roy admitted that they were on the same team and working to put the culprits behind bars. Hello, Roy, we meet again. I hear you have arrested Lorna's uncle. Parker sat across the table from Roy in his office. Are you here as his lawyer or just fishing for some quick info? Roy asked with a smirk. He knew he couldn't resist Parker's charm, but still liked to put up a fight every time. It had been years since Roy lost his wife to cancer. The grief kept him away from all social activities for a long time, and the road back to life was difficult. Parker's frequent visits and lively demeanor had once again given Roy feelings he thought were dead. But Parker was married. Both, I guess. I want to see him. Is he arrested? Parker asked. No, we asked him to come and answer some questions and he agreed. No arrest. Is he still here? He is. One of our detectives is talking to him. Then I would like to talk to him right now and tell him he doesn't have to answer anything he doesn't want to. Did you tell him that? Parker was getting agitated seeing what she suspected was unjust. Of course we did. He insists he didn't do anything. We are just trying to get his statement. Now, as your favorite pie, what can you tell me? Parker gave her best smile with dovey eyes and a slight tilt of her head. I don't have to tell you anything, Roy said, looking into some papers in front of him, trying to avoid any eye contact with her. Lorna knocked and came in just then. Where is he? Have you arrested him? You know he is innocent. Lorna fired one sentence after another with a bit of indignation. Calm down, Lorna. He is here voluntarily. We have not arrested him. He will be out in a couple of minutes. Roy patiently answered her. He had come to know Lorna during the last couple of cases and they were on good terms now. You guys can talk to him later. See if he tells you anything different. And tell me if you find anything. Don't go putting your lives in danger. Roy warned them both. A short, portly man walked into Roy's room. His face appeared a bit flushed and he seemed nervous. The moment he entered, he said, You have to believe me, I had nothing to do with this. Uncle Jude! Lorna got up from her seat and hugged the man. We know you didn't do anything, and we will make sure nothing happens to you. This is your lawyer, Parker. Lorna assured her uncle, pointing a finger at Parker. Parker could see the anxious old man was troubled and disturbed by the events of the day. Don't worry, Mr. Miller, we will find out who did this. You are not arrested, and you don't have to answer any questions you don't want to. Parker got up and shook his hands. Now that everything is resolved and you have your client, I would like to get back to my work, Roy said, getting up, indicating that they should leave him alone. The three of them filed out of Roy's office and made their way through the rows of desks and out of the police building. You must be hungry. Did you eat anything today morning, Uncle Jude? Lorna asked, concerned her uncle might just collapse because of all the tense events of the morning. Why don't we grab a quick bite at the cafe and talk about what happened? Parker suggested. That is if you are up to it. Sure, that sounds like a good idea. Let's eat and I will tell you all that I know. Jude agreed and they made their way to the cafe. Why don't you guys go ahead and I will catch up with you in a few minutes? I need to pick up Benji from the salon. The cafe is pet-friendly so he can join us inside, Parker shouted at Lorna, who was getting into her truck a couple of spots away. Chapter 3. Thank you, Lorna. I don't know what I would do without you. Deal with all this without you. Jude took a bite of his BLT. They were still waiting for Parker and Benji to show up at the cafe. Don't worry, Uncle Jude. You know I will do anything for you. You were always there for me when I was in school. Spending time at the motel were some of my best childhood memories. Promise me you will not expose yourself to any danger or take unnecessary risks. Jude knew Lorna could sometimes cross the legal boundaries in her quest to find out the truth. Parker and Benji walked in, and she pulled a chair to the table they were sitting. It was a boon that the cafe allowed pets. Parker ordered a chicken salad and returned to the table. So what's it all about? Tell me everything. Don't leave out anything. She asked Jude. It was all a shock to me. Uncle Jude began. The cleaning lady came into my office saying that the guest in room 5 was not responding to her knocks. I told her to wait for an hour or so and try again. She is not our permanent employee, you know, just comes in twice a day to clean the rooms and leaves. When it was time for her to leave, I decided to open the room and let her in. I assumed the guest had gone out, he continued. Is this normal? Guests not dropping off keys at the reception?
Copyright
Parker asked.
2025 Tara Hester.
Not really, although some prefer to do that. But there was no sign saying do not clean or anything like that. So I let her in. That is when we saw the body lying next to the bed. There was no blood though. I tried to shake him, but he was cold and stiff. I called 911 immediately, Jude continued in hushed tones. The police came and then they discovered a bag with cash strewn around the other side of the bed. They said I killed the man for the money and started asking me where the rest of the cash was. Shock and surprise was all over Jude's face, and Parker believed him and his story. It was a story until she found facts supporting that, she thought. And you don't know who this guest was? Parker asked. He is a regular guest, but I don't know much about him other than that. He came in every few weeks, stayed for a couple of nights, and then left. Said he was a salesman of some kind. That's all, Jude replied. And did you know he was carrying cash? Did he do that always? Parker tried to push him a bit. Of course not. How would I know that he had cash in his bag? In fact, I didn't know he even had a bag. He only carried a laptop bag on his shoulder at the time of checking in. Must have taken it out of his car later. So he had a car? Parker thought that would give them more information about the victim. I don't know. I assumed he must have traveled in car. How else would you get there to the motel on the highway? Jude replied, a bit irritated now. I am sorry, Jude, but I have to ask these questions. I am not accusing you of anything. Believe me, Lorna and I want to find out the truth and get you out of this mess. The more we know, the easier it gets to find out the truth and exonerate you from the crime. Parker explained it to Jude, sensing his irritation. Please, Uncle Jude, don't get mad at us. We are here to help, Lorna pitched in. I am sorry, I didn't mean to. But I am addressing questions, accusations all morning, and it is getting on my nerves now, Jude apologized. Roy said they are not arresting you yet. We too need to find out more about the victim. We will soon know more about the time of death and other things. I guess that should be enough to get you put off suspicion, Parker thought out loud. Benji, sit, good boy. Benji was getting restless and there wasn't much more to know at this time. She had the initial questions covered. It was time to find out who the guy was and what was he doing with all that cash. Obviously, he was involved in something shady. Why would anyone carry that kind of cash otherwise? I think we have enough questions for now, Mr. Miller. We might trouble you again for more information later, Parker said. Lorna, I will get started on this and let you know as soon as I have something. Mr. Miller, can you please send me all the information about the guest that you have? I will try to find out more about this person. Also check for a car in your parking lot if you can. Sure, no problem. I know the usual cars. And I can check if others belong to our current guests. It won't be that difficult. The trio broke up and Parker decided to drop Benji off at the house and return to the office. Benji was not a nuisance. but she needed some quiet to focus on all the aspects of her new case. Chapter 4. Finding out who the victim was, not that difficult for Parker. Jason Dawson was a local. No wonder he didn't need a car. The salesman's story, too, obviously, was a lie. So why was he lying and what was he hiding? Parker began to think of the line of investigation she should start on to find out what this mystery man was up to. The day turned out to be much busier than Parker thought, and it was time to wind up things. She called Lorna and updated her on the things that she found out. There was no reason for the police to harass Lorna's uncle or suspect him for murder. But could he have killed for money? Parker headed home as the summer sun was still high on the horizon. A group of teenagers were hanging out at the far end of the lot, enjoying their frozen shakes and making the most of the summer holidays. That reminded her of Mark. He had decided to not visit home in the summer and work at the college, even enroll in a couple of classes that would help him finish his credits early. Well, there weren't really any good reasons for him to come home either. Peter was staying away more often, and when he was there, it would make things only more awkward. But Parker missed having Mark around. She parked the Mustang in the driveway and decided to take Benji for a walk. People were out late and could be seen sitting out on their porches. As she followed Benji on their usual route, she could smell barbecue enthusiasts experimenting with different spices, grilling different meats. Summer was such a fun time. The appetizing smells got her thinking about dinner, and she decided to roast some corn in the oven along with the chicken later. The next morning, Parker decided to head to the victim's house. She had already looked up all the information she could about him online. However, that was not much. The man hardly had any social media profiles, and almost no photos with family or kids. Maybe he was a loner. She had managed to get his address from one of the profiles. Maybe it was false too. But there was only one way to know. Parker did her morning run and got ready for the day with a glass full of green smoothie. She was a health nut, and never missed her run or a healthy breakfast. She poured water for Benji and headed out. With a case in hand, there was a strong sense of purpose in her stride. She fired up her Mustang and eased out on the road. The address the victim had on his profile was on the other side of the town. Talking to his neighbors was the only lead right now. As she entered the community, she was greeted with neatly manicured lawns and picture-perfect ranch-style houses. It didn't take long to identify the one she was looking for. It stood out from the rest because of its shabby appearance and unkempt front yard. It looked like no one lived there. The upscale community must sure be up in arms with him for disturbing the tranquility and postcard look, she thought. She halted her car in the front and slowly walked to the house. There were a bunch of letters pasted on the door from the Home Association Committee, asking him to clean up or pay a hefty fine. Would any of those push it a bit too far? Parker knew it was illegal to go through anyone's mail, but heck, the guy was dead. She quickly sifted through the pile of letters and tossed them back. She tried the door and it was open. Maybe he had put it on sale and had kept it open. Parker hesitated for a minute, and then entered the house anyway. The owner was dead. It was unlikely anyone would take an objection. She looked through the rooms. Most of them were in bad shape. The sink had a couple dishes, it seemed in use. The refrigerator had milk that was still good and within date. So he did stay here, she thought. Parker moved to the next room and noticed a writing desk in a corner. The room looked like a home office. She went through the drawers and found some letters kept in his drawers. She looked for any senders' names or marks. The letter was not from any organization or a government communication. But if he kept it safe, it must have been important. She opened the letter and began to read. It was a threat. The letter was unsigned but threatened Jason of consequences. It warned him to stop doing what he was and return everyone's money or face certain death. This was a big lead. Parker took a photo of the letter and of the postmark. She folded it back the way it was and put it back in its place. She had already entered into the house without any authorization. Taking the letter could mean stealing or tampering with the evidence. Parker walked out of the house and looked around. She noticed a woman in the house opposite Jason's, and decided to go talk to her. She spent a few minutes talking to the woman, but it didn't help a lot. All she could tell was the man was in and out of the house, mostly out. He had recently lost his job and was working on something new. At least that is what he told them. Satisfied with her preliminary research, Parker decided to go and talk to Roy. She was a prosecutor for a long time, and believed in putting real culprits behind bars. She was also new at this investigation thing. Talking to Roy and telling him what she found would perhaps send them in the right direction, and she could also find out the angle they were working on. Parker had become a regular feature in Roy's office these past few months, and his secretary was now beginning to give her that knowing smile. Although everyone knew she was working on a case, Parker thought they were starting to gossip about the two. She knocked on his door and walked in. Roy was reading through some file and did not look up until he was finished reading through. "What can I do for you, Parker?" Roy answered in a very formal tone, making it clear that he was not ready for any chit-chat. "I have not come for any information. Instead, I have some new clues for you," Parker retorted. "Really? Something to exonerate your client, I am sure." "I found out about the victim. He is a local. The thing is, I found something in his house that you will find interesting." "That is breaking and entering. I don't have to tell you that." Roy seemed angry with Parker. "Not if it is already open and there is no one to object," Parker replied smugly. "All right, out with it. I don't have all day. What did you find?" Roy prodded Parker, showing his impatience. "I found some letters in his desk. They are not signed, but clearly threaten Jason of consequences. I think you will find them very useful in your investigation." "Yes, and throw us off of Jude's trail. Very convenient," Roy replied. "Why are you so hung up on Jude's guilt? He had no reason to kill the guy. I bet he didn't even know who he was." "Money, of course. Jude was having money problems. He had 2 mortgages on his property and was getting calls to settle the debt," Roy barked. "What else can you tell me?" Parker took a chance. "Nothing. I don't have to tell you anything. We are still looking at evidence and you will find out soon if we arrest Jude." "Okay, I will do what I can to prove it to you that Jude is not the killer. You will see." Parker picked up her keys from the table and stormed out of his office. Not sure what she expected from Roy. Chapter 5. Parker was hungry and, as promised, called Lorna up with an update. They decided to meet at the cafe for a quick bite. It was good talking to Lorna, Parker thought. Bouncing off ideas with her always led to some new directions. And she could bank on her if she wanted some electronic sleuthing too. Back at the office, Parker looked in at Benji and filled his bowl with some dog food. He was waiting for his snack when she walked in. Benji lapped up the food and looked up at Parker with dopey eyes, begging her to take him out. "You must be feeling alone, isn't it?" Parker ruffled the top of her golden retriever. The soft coat was better than usual because of the recent visit to the spa, and he smelt great too. She gave him a big, strong hug and walked out to meet Lorna. Lorna was already at their usual table waiting for her. "Hi, what did you find, Parker?" Lorna was eager to find out if her uncle was still in trouble. "Good news and some bad," said Parker. "I went to our victim's house and found some threatening letters addressed to our victim. It is not clear where they came from." "That is good. What is the bad news?" "I talked to Roy. They are still training their guns on Jude. They found out something. He said Jude needed money and had a double mortgage on the property." Parker explained. "So what? He killed this man? It is business. He has been doing this for decades," Lorna said in a defensive tone. "I am not saying he did it, but they have a motive. There was cash missing from the scene, a lot of cash. So with this piece of information, they have a motive to connect him to the crime and dig further." Parker argued. "So what are we going to do?" "Here, see this. I took a snap of the letter and the envelope. Check out the postmark. Looks like it is from a neighboring town." Parker handed her phone over to Lorna. Looks like it." Lorna expanded the photo part where the postmark was and looked at the zip code. "It is. But what now? We don't know what the man looks like. How does it help knowing where it came from?" We don't know what the attacker looks like, but we do know the victim. I will go there tomorrow and ask around. Try to find out if anyone had seen him there. There must be some connection. The two finished their lunch and Parker went to her office, Benji in tow. She picked up the mail and settled in her high-back chair. The sun was beating down on them, and it was almost impossible to stay outside in the oppressive heat and humidity. Although they were not a coastal town, the ocean was not too far, and the moisture in the air made it more difficult during the summer months. Parker opened an officially marked letter with some anticipation. It was what she was hoping for. The Bureau of Security and Investigative Services had sent her PI license, and Parker was all set to advertise her services now. This was a big step. Until now, all she had was a trust of a few people and Roy's recommendation. With the official document, she could now spread the word and work in nearby towns too. This should also come in handy when talking to people she did not know. Not that they were obligated to talk to her, but it was good to have some credibility. The next morning, Parker did her ritual run and began thinking of the task she had planned for the day. This would be the first time she would have to travel out of town to investigate anything. As a prosecutor, all the evidence came to her table and field work was not a part of it. Going to a different town and asking people questions was making her a bit anxious. After all, there was a killer on the loose. What if she was spotted first? Parker pushed away the ominous thoughts and decided to just jump into things she had to do. It was summer and she looked forward to a small road trip. The town was just an hour away. Parker slid into her yellow Mustang and decided to enjoy the ride. She fished out her old iPod and hooked it up with the car's audio system. The sun was up, but the air was still cool in the morning. The breeze from the window felt good. Parker decided to go straight to the place where she thought the killer must have visited, the post office. She spotted a mail clerk on the side of the building loading the mail into a small truck. "Hi there. Can I trouble you for a minute?" Parker asked in a sweet tone. The 30-something man seemed a bit flustered with the attention from a beautiful woman and readily agreed to be of help. "Can you tell me where this postmark came from? I am trying to find someone. I want to give them a surprise," Parker said. The man took her phone and peered at the stamp. "This is our postmark, it came from here," he replied, happy he could answer. "So the person dropped it off here?" "Not necessarily. We pick up mail from offices and blue boxes around the town. It could have come from anywhere." "But you cannot tell which blue box or building you picked it up from?" "Nope." The man looked disappointed that he was unable to solve Parker's little problem. "No matter, thanks for your help, sir." Parker thanked the man and roamed aimlessly around the parking lot. Chapter 6. She had not really thought this through. How would you locate a man in an unknown town? She didn't know anything about him or her. Age, looks, height, color, heck, she did not even know if it was a man or a woman. She suddenly felt thirsty. The sun was directly on the top of her head now, and the summer heat and humidity was making it difficult to stay outside. Her eyes fell on a small bar on the opposite side of the road, and she decided it was time to eat and drink something. A small ornamental bell dinged as she entered the bar. The interiors were dimly lit and dark. She had to adjust to the low light after roaming around in the blazing sun. It felt like she hit a wall of cool air as she entered the bar, and was relieved and thankful for the respite. She sat at the bar and asked for a glass of Coke. "You look new here. Business trip?" The woman tending the bar asked Parker. "Yes, kind of. I am a PI and looking for someone. The problem is, I don't know what I am looking for." Parker felt an unusual urge to tell her the truth. Well, she was new to this PI business, and hadn't devised any sneaky ways to make people talk, yet. "A PI, hun, that's fresh. Sounds dangerous, though." The woman behind the counter continued to chat. "Care to eat something? Our avocado chicken sandwiches are famous around here." "Sure, why not? I am hungry. It is the heat, I guess." Parker didn't have the energy to look through the menu and just went along with the suggestion. That fucking coward and old gentleman sitting a few chairs away suddenly erupted in anger. "I am going to kill him." "Calm down, Ron. The woman behind the bar talked to him empathetically and asked him to take a hold of himself. But how could he? I had dreams. We had planned to go to Hawaii. It is all gone. How can these people rob you without ever even meeting you? I hate technology. The old man continued his tirade. Parker's chicken sandwich came with a small portion of corn chips and salsa. Parker raised an eyebrow looking at the woman, and she answered. He is a sweet guy, not dangerous at all. Said his account was emptied a few days back. Someone took away all the money from his bank account without his knowledge. That sounds bad. Parker went back to her sandwich. But something about the bank fraud kept nagging her, and she could not shake the thought. The food and Coke brought back some energy, but she still could not think of a way to find out the mystery killer. She finally took out her phone and opened the photo of the motel victim that she had snapped at his house and showed it to the woman behind the bar. Have you seen this man here? Parker asked. Nope, but I am here during the day. There's someone else for the evening and night. If he came in the night, I won't know. Parker thanked her and started laboring back to her car that was still standing in the post office lot. The whole trip was a waste, she thought. Not sure what she was going to find anyway. But she was also determined to find out who the killer was. She sat in the car and cranked up the AC. The car was hot as a sauna room, and it was impossible to hold the steering wheel. She pulled up the map on her smartphone, looking at the town she was in. The town center was not that far. And then she decided to just show around the victim's photo in a couple of cafes and motels to check if he visited the town, or if someone remembered seeing him here. It was a long shot, but there was nothing else to go on. Parker was exhausted by the end of the day and debated what she should do. She also had to pick up Benji from a doggy creche that one of her neighbors ran. The day was not as productive as Parker thought. Finally, she decided to meet Roy and talk to him a bit more about what they had found. Just the person I wanted to talk to. Roy greeted Parker with a big smile and took her by surprise. She was prepared for another duel with him, and this came across nothing less than a shock. That's new. How can I help? The thing is, we need someone skilled to get information off of Jason's computer. Looks like it is heavily protected and almost impossible to get in. Roy conceded that his tech team was unable to break through the walls on the laptop. We heard he was programmer in a big software company and very skilled in computer security. Roy explained. Sure, I will ask Lorna to pick up the computer and get cracking. She will do anything to clear her uncle's name. What else can you tell me about the victim? Parker asked with a bit more confidence, now that she had something to trade. Well, we checked the motel cameras to see who else checked in or came to the motel. But the victim's room is not under the coverage. So if someone went to his room directly, we wouldn't know. Roy explained. Anything else about Jason? No, not a lot. We think his computer might give us more information about what he was really working on. He lost his job a few months back and was not employed. But at the same time, there weren't any new charges to his credit card or no debt. So the question is, where was he getting money from? Roy thought out loud and seemed genuinely interested in talking about the case with Parker. That is interesting and a good line to investigate, Roy, Parker agreed. She looked up at the clock on the sidewall and remembered she had to pick up Benji from the doggy daycare. She got up and promised to remind Lorna to pick up the computer in the next couple of hours. Chapter 7. Lorna called bright and early, and they decided for a breakfast meeting at the cafe. She sounded excited, thought Parker. Parker had completely forgotten that she had asked Lorna to pick up the victim's computer. She was hoping that Lorna found something that could take the investigation forward. The killer seemed smart enough to pick a location and time where no one could see him. Did he know about the position of the cameras too? Or was that just a coincidence? She would find out soon. Lorna was ready for Parker as she walked into the cafe. The excitement was clearly expressed on Lorna's face, and she was waiting to burst out. Our victim was definitely into something shady. I finally managed to get into his computer. It was hard, the guy was skilled. Lorna began with an explanation of how well he had secured the computer and the technology he had used. That's beyond my grasp, Lorna, but I am sure if you find it hard, it must be really good. But protecting your computer is not a crime. What else did you find? Asked Parker, slightly impatient. I found a bunch of email addresses. And by a bunch I mean thousands and thousands. What does that prove? Parker appeared a bit confused. Look, this is just a theory right now, but I think he was running some scam. These emails usually come from the data thefts that you read in papers. Attackers often breach secure servers from one of the online services that people use and steal information like email addresses and names. They sometimes even manage to get their financial information. Either way, I think he was using the email addresses to dupe people online. Lorna explained her theory to Parker. That sounds evil, Parker commented, but she was lost in thought. Her mind was somewhere else, and that old nagging feeling about the man in the bar was back. Aha! I think we might have our man, she exclaimed. What, the killer? How can you know that even without looking at the information that I found? Lorna asked, a bit confused. You know I traveled to the town mentioned in that postmark? Parker paused. There was a man in the bar I visited for lunch. He was surely drunk, but after a few minutes he suddenly got angry and started shouting about something. Later I found out that he was fooled by someone. Apparently online, his entire account with the money he had been saving for a trip was wiped out. So between the postmark and evidence on Jason's computer, you think that old man killed him? Lorna expanded on Parker's thoughts. Do you think he could have done that? Strangled a young man? And why would he still be cursing him if he already had his revenge? You are right, Lorna. Everything doesn't add up, but I guess we can still get some more information from him. Perhaps it will help you look for other clues. Parker was happy that they had something to move forward with. Are you up for a road trip? This is kind of last minute for me, but wait. Let me take care of a couple of things and we can be on our way. Lorna still felt she owed her uncle all the help and agreed to go with Parker. That's okay. I will go get Benji. Can't leave him alone for too long. Parker picked up her things and rushed out of the cafe, feeling this second trip to the place would give them something concrete to move on, even if he may not be the one. Proving that he was the one would be still difficult. With so many email addresses, any one of them could have done this. She also didn't know if the police had picked up any fingerprints or other evidence to match with the killer. The two of them walked into the bar with Benji sitting outside with his bowl full of water. You don't have to leave your dog outside. Bring him in. He can sit in that corner. The woman behind the bar shouted at Parker from the far end. You are back again. Must have really liked my avocado chicken sandwich. She gave a weak smile as she indicated the other corner of the room near the entrance. Thanks, I will bring him. It's hot outside. But first, is the gentleman who was here yesterday and today? Parker got to the question that was topmost on her mind. You are early today, he will be here. It just isn't his time yet. You said his account was wiped out. Then why does he waste so much money drinking all day? Parker said. I guess he has a lot more than he lost. But it is his money after all. No matter how much, you just hang on for a while, I am sure he will be in soon. Parker and Lorna sat impatiently looking at the clock every 5 minutes. There was nothing more to do but wait for their only credible lead. Have you heard of anyone else talking about losing money? Parker took the opportunity to interview the bartender. Not from or regulars, no. The bell on the door dinged and an old man walked in. His shoulders slumped and his stride dragged. Parker looked at the woman behind the counter, and she nodded to confirm it was the man they had been waiting for. Parker intercepted the man before he could take a seat at the bar. Sir, can we please talk to you? If you could care to join us, we would like to talk to you about your financial loss. Parker indicated to the line of booths by the opposite wall. Don't give me any false hopes. I am fed up with the police telling me that there is nothing they can do, that my money has vanished without a trace. I am sick of people telling me that it would take a lot more to trace the money than the money that I have lost. The man replied, getting angry with each sentence. Parker extended her hand. I am Parker. Sir, I am a blogger and I cover financial crimes. Crimes that involve online scams. And this is my friend. We want to help you find out where your money is. I am Jack, the man said with minimal interest and dropped himself on the couch. Did you answer one of those calls that tell you that you have outstanding tax payments? Parker began. No, no calls. Do you do online stuff a lot? Use your bank's website? No. All I do is check my emails and browse any interesting pages that my friends send me. Do you suspect any specific online activity that you think could have led to this? Parker continued. How would I know? As I said, I hardly use my computer. We think someone could have got your information from one of the emails you opened. Do you remember opening any websites that your friends are unlikely to send? Why do you say that? Do you know who did this? No, sir. We do not. Will you be willing to give us access to your computer and email? Parker knew she was pushing her luck, but still asked the question. They have already done that, the police. Couldn't find anything. I don't know what more you kids can find out. For all I know, you are one of them and will rob me for more. And with that, Jack got up and made his way to the bar. Parker and Lorna looked at each other disappointed. But they couldn't blame Jack for not trusting them. They also agreed that this old man was unlikely to be the murderer. They also got to know that he was most probably targeted on his email. You need to dig in further, Lorna, Parker said. Find out all you can from Jason's computer. See for more clues. I will, but I doubt we can find anything more. And even if we find out the scam, it won't really tell us who the killer is. Chapter 8. Lorna's phone rang as they entered the cafe back home. I will be right there. Don't say a word, Lorna said into the phone. She put the phone back into her pocket and looked at Parker. They have arrested Uncle Jude. We need to go. The two rushed back to the car, and Parker raced to the police building in the town center. Without caring to talk to anyone, they stormed into Roy's office. You ask Lorna to look into the computer and then arrest Jude? Is this a joke? Parker shouted at Roy. Sit down. Are you Jude's lawyer? Roy asked. Yes, I am. Now, why have you arrested Jude? We have not. He is here just to answer a few questions. He will most probably be cleared. Roy explained. We have recovered a set of fingerprints from the victim. But they are of no use if we do not have any suspects. Roy's answers seemed to calm Lorna, and they both settled into chairs. We think we have something to go on, Parker began. Lorna, tell him what you found. Lorna brought Roy up to speed with the information she found on the victim's computer, and her theory about the scam. And you think this was revenge for duping someone? Well, with the threat letters and the man I came across in the neighboring town, it seems like a good theory. Parker supported Lorna's arguments. Parker told Roy about the drunk and about their little chat. So you don't think he might have done it? Doesn't look like it. And he still looked too sad to be the one who has made his enemy pay for his sins. Parker thought out loud. Okay, but if there is one, there could be others. Roy suggested. That is true, and we can use those email addresses that Lorna found to check, Parker said. But there are thousands of them, and it could be any one or a lot more? Roy said, lost in thought. They all sat silently for a few minutes trying to find out a solution to their problems and weak leads that were taking them nowhere. I think I have an idea. Parker started. What if we get the names of all the financial crimes that were reported with the police in that town? We find the names and email address of those people and try to match them with the email that Lorna found. Yes, I can do that. It won't take too long. And then we can be fairly sure one of those people is our killer. But aren't we seeing all this evidence from the small perspective of the threat letters? It could be anyone, really. Yes, it could be. But this is the only lead we have right now. And it is unlikely that someone sitting across the other end of the country came here to kill our scamster. Parker argued. All right then. I will call the chief there and ask him to send us all the financial complaints in the last year, along with the complainants' email addresses. We will see where that goes, Roy said with a certain finality, and indicated that the two of them should leave now. Lorna was happy to see the list of complainants in her mailbox the next morning. Roy had delivered on his promise and must have really leaned on his counterpart there to get the list so quickly. All this investigation and her uncle's involvement had unsettled Lorna. She was ready to finish this as soon as possible and get back to work. She downloaded the file of complainants and began working on weeding out the overlapping email addresses. It didn't take her too long. The short program she wrote for the search worked through the thousands of email addresses and threw up a few names. By late afternoon, she had what they needed to move ahead. "Roy, it's me, Lorna. I have emailed you back the list of names that match the email list we found on the victim's computer. It is now up to you to bring them in."
Tara Hester.
Lorna called Roy and gave him the update. "How many names?" "There are a few in there, but you can look at their other info and bring it down further if you like," Lorna suggested. "Good. Give me a couple of days and we will see what we can unearth," Roy promised. Chapter 9. Peter was back from another office trip. Parker was in a happy mood. They had shortlisted potential killers, and Lorna's uncle was not in focus, at least right now. But she knew if this didn't pan out, Jude would be the one with strongest motive, and they would have to go back to the drawing board. Peter took a shower and climbed down the stairs looking fresh but worried. "Hey Peter, I am so glad that you are back. What do you think? Should we go for a nice dinner tonight?" Parker suggested, trying to make whatever little time she spent with him special. "What? No. I have been eating hotel food for the last couple of weeks," Peter hissed at Parker, already looking irritated. They sat in silence looking at the TV screen. But none of them was looking at what was on, and neither were they interested. Their minds wandered to the deep recesses of their memories. Parker thinking of the good times, aching to bring that same emotion back into their marriage. Peter unable to see a future that would reflect the past. As if making the decision in that very instant, he said, "Parker, I am leaving." "But you just came back." "I am leaving you," emphasizing the you. Parker couldn't think of anything. Her mind kind of shut down. All the sounds around her receded, and she plunged into a silent void, feeling the entire room implode. This was not really unexpected. She had played this in her mind many times, and expected it to happen any time. But she had also hoped that things would turn around, and it wouldn't come to this. No matter how much you think you are prepared for it, it is never easy or smooth. She got up and went up to their room. There was no reason for any dramatics or ugliness. She had failed to revive their marriage, and that was that. Peter had already left when she woke up the next morning. There were many things to think about, but she had already decided on many things long before it actually happened. There won't be any ugliness, and she would ensure that Mark is kept out of the whole thing. The phone rang in that moment, and Parker reluctantly picked it, hoping it was Peter wanting to say that last night was a mistake. "It has all unfolded exactly the way I wanted, we wanted." Roy's excited, happy voice spoke from the speaker, and Parker was at a loss for words. For a moment she thought he was talking about her separation. "We have the suspect in custody and we have him cornered. We will be there in a few minutes." Parker hung up and texted Lorna asking her to get to Roy's office ASAP. She deserved to know what was happening. Roy began telling the two about how they had narrowed down on the suspect and arrested him for the murder. "We didn't have to question him a lot. We took the photo of our shortlisted suspects and showed them around. Jude's temporary maid confirmed that man was lurking in the parking lot of the motel. He was also seen in one of the malls and cafe in our town." "But that is not proof of killing the man, Roy," Parker complained. "That is not, but we also ran his fingerprints and they matched with those that we pulled of the body. After that, he just confessed." "So he killed him for revenge?" Parker asked. "But how did he find the scamster?" Lorna wondered aloud. "That is where it gets interesting. Our con man was conned with his own tools." Roy began. "It was kind of a coincidence, really. Jason was running a scam where he sent people emails with false branding offering big travel discounts if people participated in the survey. He asked them to confirm their bank information and got all the information he needed." "And people just gave away important information?" Parker asked, astonished. "Some people trust others a bit too much, Parker. They believed they were giving information to a trusted brand that would protect that information." "But then how did he find Jason?" Parker forgot all about the events of the earlier night as Roy started telling the rest. He came across Jason in one of the cafes in their town. The branding of the email that the police had informed him was suspect was on Jason's screen. He quietly sat behind him and looked at everything Jason did. "That's it? Just because he had the same page or email open?" Lorna asked. That, and he followed him for the next month. Apparently, Jason never did all his work from one location. Apart from the online tools he used to mislead the police, he also kept changing places. That was the reason he checked into your uncle's motel, though he was local. "That sounds like he did his own sleuthing," Parker said. "Yes, he did, and quite well too. He said he didn't want to kill him, but he refused to return his money. And in a moment of anger, he strangled the man." Parker and Lorna said goodbye to Roy and walked back to their cars. Lorna noticed that Parker was quieter than usual, but decided not to ask her. She had known her friend for a long time and knew that Parker would talk when she was ready. Parker was glad that Jude was now free and they had the real killer in custody. It was this satisfaction of punishing the culprits that had first drawn her to the legal career and becoming a prosecutor. But as much as she hated it, the thought of separation with Peter returned, and future suddenly seemed colorless and bleak, like the stormy clouds gathering over the horizon. The end.